We're live. So we are going to do a wonderful book tonight. I like to do readings from a book from time to time. And the Taoist philosophy from which a lot of the martial arts philosophy springs is full of contradictions and paradoxes, and it makes the Bible look like it's, directions for operating your faucet at home. I mean, it's like very weird, esoteric, hard to grasp and handle. And this is some of the more accessible stuff written by Chuang Tsu. It's called Inner Chapters, and this is just different selections that this man wrote hundreds of years ago. So this came after the Tao Te Ching. Tao Te Ching we also have in the lobby, and that's like the original Taoist text. And it's funny to say in that way, because they say in Taoism, they say the Tao that can be named is not the eternal. Basically, you can't put it into words. And yet we're going to try to put it into words, or he does. And some of these readings like perfectly encapsulate the ludicrousness of putting what we're after into words and trying to verbalize it. Yet we're going to try. It's going to be fun. So this is sometimes, it's always deep, sometimes quite funny, and I think that's important for us because sometimes philosophy and meditation can get quite dry, and it's like you're literally just sitting there and breathing. So a little bit of history, philosophy, motivation to get us going. This, by the way, is an absolutely beautiful book. It's got these photographs and pictures that really give you the feel for kind of what the words can't really describe. But you guys will be staring at this front of the book a lot. But we're going to dispense with the pictures and go into the words. So I picked out a couple of different sections. I could flip to any random page and it would be great, but these are the ones that I want to talk about tonight. So some of these I've mentioned before. I'll do the long version of this. I've done the short version earlier, and apologies in advance. I'm going to murder every name that I'm going to try to pronounce. Tzu said to Chuang Tsu, "The king of Wei gave me some seeds from a huge gourd. I planted them and they bore a fruit big enough to hold 5 bushels. I used it to carry water, but it was too heavy to lift. So I cut it in half to make ladles, but they were too shallow to hold anything. They were big, unwieldy, and useless, so I smashed them into pieces." Chuang Tzu said, "My friend, you are not very intelligent in your use of large things. There was a man from Sung who could make a good salve for chapped hands. His family had had a silk bleaching business for generations. A traveler heard of this and offered to buy the secret formula for 100 pieces of gold, which is like $1 billion in today's money. The family gathered together to have a conference and said, 'We have been bleaching silk for generations and have earned only a few pieces of gold. Now in one day we can sell the secret for 100 pieces of gold. Let him have it.' The traveler took it and offered it to the king of Wu. Wu and Ye, something with a Y, were at war. The king of Wu entrusted the traveler with the command of his fleet. In the winter, the fleet fought a naval battle against the Yu and totally defeated it. The traveler was rewarded with a fief and a title, even better than 100 pieces of gold. So in both cases, the cure for chapped hands was the same, but was used differently. One man got a title while the others are still bleaching silk. Now, you had a gourd big enough to hold 5 bushels. Why didn't you think of making it into a great barrel and using it to float along the rivers and lakes instead of worrying about it being useless?" I covered this with a sticky note. "Instead of worrying about it being useless for holding anything. Your mind, my friend, is still very cluttered with trivia." And it goes on, and I'm going to read the next part, but I'm going to try to make sense of what we got so far. This is hinting at, or directly in some cases, when he says, "You are not very intelligent." It's this concept that I like to play with which is we see a challenge and we see a problem, right? A thing that is not the way that we want it to be. And this seems to us to be a problem. And if you treat it as such, you're kind of meeting resistance with resistance and you get stuck. Versus if you see a problem as an opportunity and even just switching the semantics of that, you see this huge gourd instead of like, I don't know what to do with this stupid thing, I smash it into pieces. If you see it as an opportunity, you might not know what the opportunity is, but you know there's something here. That makes you creative. So in adult martial arts, you're sparring, or in jiu-jitsu, you might be grappling with somebody. And this is where I had this experience a couple of years ago where I was just rolling with somebody and they put their hand on my ankle in this way that nobody had ever done before that I could remember. And I just like stopped. I didn't know what to do. And he had been practicing for a little bit longer than me. And he said, oh, what you should do is this. And he showed me some way to use his grip to kind of sweep him. And I was like, oh, that's probably been true forever. And this is just the first time that I'm noticing it after 20 years of practice. And when we start to recognize these opportunities and we start to get creative, this is really wonderful. It energizes us. It leads us to, be creative and not get stuck, not get attached to the way that we've always done things. That's part of the problem with seeing things as a problem, is it's only a problem because it stops us from doing what we have always done. But the opportunity is in finding a new way to do something. So I'm going to move on. This is still part of the same thing. Chuang Tsu said, I have a big, don't know how to say this word either, ailanthus tree. Its trunk is so gnarled and full of knots that it is impossible to measure it accurately. Its branches are too twisted and crooked for anyone to measure with a compass and square. It stands at the side of the road, but no carpenter would give it a second glance. Now, your words are as big and useless. No one wants to hear what you have to say. This is him talking smack to Chuang Tsu, who is not one to talk smack to. Chuang Tsu replied, have you ever watched a wildcat or a weasel? It crouches close to the ground and waits for its prey. Then it leaps up and down, first one way, then the other, until it catches and kills its prey. Then again, there is the yak, as great as a cloud shadowing the sky. Big as it is, it cannot catch a mouse. Now, you have this giant tree and are concerned that it is useless. Why don't you plant it on land where nothing grows, in a wild, barren place? There you may saunter idly around it, doing nothing, and lie down to sleep beneath its boughs. No one will try to cut it down. Nothing can harm it since it has no use. How can it cause you any anxiety? So there's a lot here, and the depth, I'm sure, totally eludes me. But this concept, again, of like, this is useless. This thing seems useless. It's, in this case, its utility is in its uselessness, right? That's the problem, is this thing is useless. But that is actually what gives us its value. No carpenter is going to come and cut it down. This is like just a sweet big tree there. And you could see a big tree and you could think, oh, I'll never be able to make anything out of that wood. Or you could see, the opportunity to lay down and recognize that it's always going to be there because it's so ugly. No one's going to come and try to chop it down. So this next one is kind of related. And boy, it starts off real weird. To use one's fingers to demonstrate fingers not being fingers is as good as using something else to demonstrate fingers not being fingers. Okay? Using horses to demonstrate horses not being horses is not as good as using something else to demonstrate horses not being horses. Heaven and earth are like a finger. The 10,000 things are like a horse. Now, I don't really get all of that, but maybe somebody does. I'm going to move on. So what is acceptable is acceptable. What is not acceptable is not acceptable. A path is formed by walking on it. A thing has a name because of its being called something. Why is it like this? Because it is. Why is it not like that? Because it is not. Everything has its own nature and its own function. Nothing is without nature or function. Consider a small stalk or a great column, a leper or a beauty, things that are great or wicked, perverse and strange. They all are one in Tao. Tao being just this general philosophy, but also like, the way of the universe. When there is separation, there is coming together. When there's coming together, there is dissolution. All things may become one, whatever their state of being. Only those who have transcended see this oneness, have no use for differences, and dwell in the constant. To be constant is to be useful. To be useful is to realize your true nature. Realization of your true nature is happiness. When you reach happiness, you are close to perfection. So you stop, yet you do not know that you stop. This is Tao. There's more, but I'm going to backtrack here a little bit. So he's talking about yin and yang. There's black and white, there's up and down, there's left and right, there's inside, outside, there's cold, there's hot, and all of this can only exist with its opposite. There is no one without the other. And we see that as being two different things, right? When we look at the yin and the yang symbol, we see the black swirl and we see the white swirl, but it is one symbol, it's oneness. And that's why they put the little white dot inside the black part. They put a little black dot inside the white part because there's like a little bit of each, but it all is just one, right? And that's kind of also the reason why it's in like a snake or an S shape in the middle. It's not just like a straight line with a separation. There is this sense of blending and oneness to it. And so in this way, Chuang Tsu is alleging that we can just kind of let go of the separation, let go of trying to judge and keep things separate. And when we recognize the oneness, that is the same basic idea as like enlightenment. There's no more separation. There's no more me versus you. There's no more, there's no more worry. There's no more anything other than just the moment. Because in the oneness, if you're just totally present, there's nothing else. And this is what we're trying to get at with our meditation. And then I really like this bit. To be useful is to realize your true nature. And this is something that I feel like is very hard for most of us as human beings. We're always trying to be something that we're not. We're always trying to like search outside of something else. Like enlightenment on some level is a woodcutter who wishes that they could be an opera singer, recognizing that they suck at singing and are great at cutting wood, and they realize this, and so they cut wood, and they're happy with it. Because to always be searching for something else that is not like your utility is a way to always be unhappy and always be searching for more and more and more and more, right? Talked about this last week. Now, that's not me saying that you should give up on all your dreams and just do whatever you're already good at now, but this is kind of this overarching theme in Taoism is we're not trying to force things. There is in any situation a simple path forward that is kind of almost the same thing as like the path of least resistance. It is there and it's laid out right in front of us. And it's something that's so obvious that we very often don't even see it. And we're always like fighting against it, right? So this is what true happiness is letting go of all of that and just being in the present with exactly what you're doing right now. So when you rack your brain trying to unify things without knowing that they are already one, it is called 3 in the morning. What do I mean by 3 in the morning? A man who kept monkeys said to them, "You get 3 acorns in the morning and 4 in the evening." This made them all very angry. So he said, "All right, how about 4 in the morning and 3 in the evening?" And the monkeys were happy. The number of acorns is the same, but the different arrangement resulted in anger or pleasure. This is what I'm talking about. Therefore, the wise will harmonize right with wrong and rest in the balance of nature. This is called taking both sides at once. So the you may or may not recognize this, but like we're all monkeys and we all get 7 acorns. And if we really want 4 in the morning and we're not going to be happy with anything else, then we're not going to be happy. But if we are able to recognize that we're all going to get our acorns in whatever order we get them, then we can just kind of relax and enjoy the acorns whenever they come. All right, this one's real weird. Now I'm going to tell you something, and he recognizes that it's weird. I don't know what heading it comes under and whether or not it is relevant here, but it must be relevant at some point. It is not anything new, but I would like to say it. There is a beginning. There is no beginning of that beginning. There is no beginning of that no beginning of beginning. There is something, there is nothing. There is something before the beginning of something and nothing and something before that. Suddenly there is something and nothing. But between something and nothing, I still don't really know which is something and which is nothing. Now, I've just said something, but I don't really know whether I've said anything or not. Now, this is only halfway of it. This is a really good example of the kind of like confused state that we're meant to get into when we are presented with a Zen koan, a riddle. The most famous one is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And you like start to think of it and it puts you in this weird state and you're meant to just be like confused out of logic and just be. And maybe that slides you right into a meditative state where you just get rid of trying to, logic your way through the day. So that little section there I thought was great for that. There's nothing in the world greater than the tip of a bird's feather, and Mount Tai is small. None have lived longer than a dead child, and old Pang Su died young. Heaven and earth grow together with me, and the 10,000 things and I are one. We are already one. What else is there to say? Yet I have just said that we are one, so my words exist also. The one and what I said about the one make 2, and 2 and 1 make 3. Thus it goes on and on. Even a skilled mathematician cannot reach the end, much less an ordinary person. If we proceed from nothing to something, we reach 3. How much farther would it be going from something to something? Enough. Let us stop. I love that one. It's so weird and so ridiculous, and that is really like the way that we are constantly trying to make sense of things. And like when we are stuck in meditation and we are thinking about whatever we have to get done after meditation, or we're thinking about whatever happened earlier on in that day, and we're stuck in this like logical state. We're stuck in this cycle of our thoughts. It can be useful to consider the ridiculousness of all thoughts and logic. On some level, it's all meaningless. And in that way, to kind of confuse yourself or laugh yourself out of this need to think and be in that logic and try to figure things out and try to get it right. There's no getting it right. It is just being. And in all of the beautiful and strange confusion and complexity of our life, there's nothing really to figure out. It's all there. So this is one of those more famous chapters. Shade said to Shadow, a little while ago you were moving, and now you are standing still. A little while ago you were sitting down, and now you are getting up. Why all this indecision? Shadow replied, don't I have to depend on others to be what I am? Don't others also have to depend on something else to be what they are? My dependence is like that of the snake on his skin, or of the cicada on his wings. How can I tell why I do this or why I do that? Once upon a time, I, Chuang Tsu, dreamed I was a butterfly, flying happily there, here and there, enjoying life without knowing who I was. Suddenly, I woke up, and I was indeed Chuang Tsu. Did Chuang Tsu dream he was a butterfly, or did the butterfly dream he was Chuang Tsu? There must be some distinction between Chuang Tsu and the butterfly. This is a case of transformation. So, shade and shadow. Shade is like permanent. It's like that gnarled tree just sits there. And shadow is like it moves around with the sun and the weather. And so shade is like, why are you moving around? Why are you doing all of this? Why all the indecision? And shadow replies, all the indecision because I rely on something else to give me my sense of myself, right? And as you can probably guess, we are usually more like shade. We are full of indecision, constantly kind of sitting up and standing down and not sure what to do, and doing all this nonsense because we feel like we rely on others, usually other people, but whatever it is, our other forces kind of give us our sense of self. We have a flighty kind of nature to us. And this reminds me actually of there's another book that we have called The Book, and it's by Alan Watts, who's great. And he has this chapter where he talks about kind of the idea behind enlightenment and the futility of just being a creature, and the true nature of it all. And he says that God got bored. I'm going to paraphrase this, and he broke himself into a billion pieces and decided that he was going to play hide and seek with himself. And so he broke himself up into a billion pieces, and the pieces don't know who they are or what they are. And all these pieces are just scattered around on the planet, and they're just tubes that take in stuff in one end and spit it out the other end. And they just move around, and eventually these tubes could be worms that are literally just that, or they could be like us, just incredibly sophisticated tubes that have incredibly complicated lives and so much important stuff that we have to get to so that we can keep moving stuff from one end of the tube to the other. And the whole deal is all of these tubes just trying to realize what they are. They're all tiny pieces of God, of the divine, of the universe. And with that realization, they kind of get absorbed back in to the collective consciousness, to the oneness, whatever. And that this kind of reminds me of that idea when we're really struggling with something, and job sucks or relationship troubles or whatever it is, on some level we can kind of laugh at ourselves and let go of all that anxiety, because we are all just tubes rolling around, moving stuff from one end to the other. And really the point of our existence is to realize the futility of that and just let it go and just be one again. So I don't remember exactly what that had to do with this, but I'm sure it was great. Then the whole butterfly dream is brilliant. And this could go in a few different directions, but we'll just go in the Matrix direction. I don't know if the Wachowskis or whoever wrote the original comic, they wrote the comic first? They made a comic after the... Great. So whoever came up with the idea, probably the Wachowskis, I don't know if they read this, but something like it. This is a very old concept, this idea of like dream, and like is our reality what we actually perceive, or is it something totally different? And what really is the difference between a dream and what seems to be our waking life? If you dream you're a butterfly and then you wake up, it could be also that you are the butterfly and you're dreaming that you're a human being. And lots of philosophies and cultures have this idea where we can let go of the attachment and let go of the anxiety, fear, and all of the things that seem to give us trouble by recognizing that it is a dream. And it is a dream that we will someday wake up from permanently, whether that means to you that you're just dead in the dirt, you're no longer moving stuff from one end to the other of the tube. It means you're in heaven. It means that you are part of the, the cosmos or the collective consciousness or whatever it means to you. This dream is going to end. It's a guarantee. And you might shift into a different dream, or maybe that's just the end of it. But it is a dream. And like every dream, when we go to sleep at night, this kind of impermanence, this flighty nature of it, our existence is the same as shade, right? It does on some level rely on everything else. And even if they figure out immortality, even if they find a way to make us live forever, at some point the sun's gonna blow up and kill us all. And even if we find a way to get far enough away from the sun that it doesn't blow up, the whole universe allegedly is just gonna get kind of sucked back into itself, according to some theories. And then maybe we get to do the whole thing all over again. But even if this dream lasts billions of years, it will still end someday. And so they say, be rooted in that which is changeless, which is nothing. And that is it. That is what there is to be rooted in. And that's what meditation gives us, is nothing. And this is part of the brilliance of just practicing meditation, is recognizing that you're born with nothing and you'll die with nothing. And that is what there is to be rooted in. So meditation connects us to that. And it's almost like a tiny practice death. And it is just letting go of attachments, even if it just happens for a moment. There's this great story in one of the other books. This young monk was cleaning and he knocked over a teacup. And it was this precious teacup, the most favorite teacup of the master monk. And he gathered the pieces, the young monk gathered the pieces of the teacup in his hands, and he put it behind his back, and he walks over to this monk, and he says, explain to me the nature of death. And the monk says, all things have their time. We have a beginning and an end, and all things must, come to their end, and all things have a time to die. And then the little monk produces this handful of dust that used to be the best teacup. And he said, it was time for your teacup to die. So thus goes everything, including this talk. It's time for this talk to die. Can you take this for me, ma'am? We're going to sit comfortably, and especially if you get nothing from all of that, other than just a sense of confusion and a feeling of what's the point of any of it? Great. That'll send you right into a wonderful meditative state. So, a quick review of sitting posture. I like to sit seiza. You can sit cross-legged. You want your back to be straight. Your shoulders are rolled back and your hands upturned. You don't want to slouch down this way. Your chin parallel to the ground and the eyes closed. Your spine is straight from the base of your skull to the tailbone, and the eyes are upturned to the point between the eyebrows. If you have a difficult time getting your eyes to raise up, maybe you are crossing your eyes. If you start to get a headache during meditation, that likely means that you're crossing your eyes. So one way to do this is to just take your finger and touch the point of your forehead right in between your eyebrows. Just feel that spot. You can put your hand back, but keep feeling that spot on your forehead, and your eyes will just naturally raise up to the correct position. Don't necessarily try to look at that spot, just feel it. Think about that spot, and your eyes will naturally raise up. And this is important so that we don't fall asleep. We are associating this posture and position with a raised consciousness. From here, relax, watch the breath, let go of all thoughts, worries, and cares. Be here now.